Thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Keeping It Real with America's Supermom. I am excited to have my next guest. I have Matthew Hissong with me. We are actually connected through Virtual Team Referral Network. So I'm so excited. We belong to the same chapter and we have had some great conversations. I feel like I've known him for years, right? I know he works nights. He's got 2 kids, one on the way. He's into gymnastics, very athletically fit, and he's a web slinger. So we'll find out more about what that is in a minute. But before we get started, I want to give him the opportunity to introduce himself.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Lachelle. And like Lachelle mentioned, my nickname is the Web Slinger, and it's kind of a combination nickname, both inside of the tech space from the web design and web world to the hosting infrastructure, all the way to the other side of the more gymnastics, acrobatics, and one of the companies that I've run for second longest company that I've run is called Hacking Gravity. And so it's a yoga centered business around, handstands and not necessarily acrobatics. It's got a kind of acrobatic lens to it, but I used to do YouTube full time, and that was all in the martial arts tricking, acrobatic, parkour, free running space. I did stunts for a living for a little while there. I was
for movies.
Yeah, well, I didn't get into any movies. I was just there for a little bit before I tore my ACL, and so it was mainly like music videos, commercials. I was a SAG-AFTRA member.
Good for you. Now, so did you meet anybody famous?
I met Steve Carell one time. I think he's famous.
Yeah,
like Steve Carell's one of my favorite. Famous in the stunt world, I've met so many famous people. Steve Tirada, Travis Wong, Anish Sherfa. Anish was the one who did all of like the last Tron movie where it was like kind of flips over the ring and stuff. And then Jeremy Marinas, he was Michelangelo. He did all the stunts for Michelangelo in the last Ninja Turtle movie.
Wow.
I had auditioned for that. Didn't make it, but there were some crazy stories there about how hot the black mats were on Hollywood Boulevard when we were auditioning and everything. And one guy ripped off a portion of his foot because he turned and his foot had glued to the mat because it was so hot, and it ripped half of his foot off, and he was just like bleeding and everything.
That is crazy.
So
see, they let y'all be the guinea pigs. You see what I'm saying? That's crazy stuff. Now I'm saying, what is going on with your mindset to be the guinea pig like that?
Stunts is one of those things. I had in my head that I was going to be an EMT firefighter because my dad's a firefighter. He's LA City Fire Assistant Fire Chief for LA City Fire Department. And then my brother's Bakersfield Fire Department, aunt is nurse, cousins are nurses and EMTs and stuff like that. So it was always kind of geared towards the medical realm, but I was doing acrobatics and flips and we were doing parkour. And like, that was how, like, I don't know, my friends and I were kind of nerdy. So we would pick on the parkour as our kind of outlet, our physical outlet. And it was fun because we were able to really geek out on parkour and David Bell and like the whole free running movement. And it was right when YouTube was starting to come around. And so we would go to like the local schools and we would just like flip off of things, and we're doing jumps off of buildings. And I still have a lot of my YouTube videos of like me doing acrobatics and flips. And then when I had a kind of traumatic experience with death inside of the EMT realm. So I quit that realm. I quit the whole medical realm. And then I hopped on over to LA to go do stunts for a living. I was teaching donation-based parkour classes in Santa Monica, having fun there. And then my friend Travis, he owned a little parkour stunt gym. So I was starting to get into like the whole stunt fighting, and I did a music video where I was dressed as this like crazy tribal, and we were doing like wall flips and everything. And it was like this neon like rave type music video. It was the coolest thing ever. We got to do so many flips.
You
But
have to share some of those. Look, that's a good presentation for a V team. But some of that footage. But you have to have a certain mindset to be a stunt person. I mean, people are getting hurt, broke. Look, this guy you mentioned with his foot, what is it that you have to do daily to keep yourself pumped up with something like that?
so the mindset is kind of, when I was training full time, it was a different level of, inside of the fitness space, it's always like, oh, trying to find motivation to like keep going and keep training and keep
Mhm.
working on stuff, and like, oh, I'm being lazy this week. It was the exact opposite when we were training in stunts. It was so much of a passion that we would have to almost force each other to take a day off. It was like, no,
Wow.
you already trained this morning. You trained in the middle of the day with us. Take the night off. Like, you need to recover and rest. Like, you need to calm down. You know what I mean? And I mean, I was constantly overtraining, and that's what ended up tearing up my ACL. Was
Oh.
the injuries are part of the process. You definitely kind of go through your own fair share. I I've done massage therapy on a lot of stunt peers and every
Mhm.
stunt performers since then, even into Cirque du Soleil and stuff. So I kind of get more of a firsthand experience of like what actually does happen with multiple different people as far as
Mhm.
injuries and the overworking of the muscles and some of the stunts. Like when you get hit with a car, like that is a really like, I mean, you're all padded up and it's safe. Like the whole stunt industry is centered around safety. Like you're supposed to be safe. Like it is a stunt coordinator's job to make sure that the stunt performers are safe. That is their like 100% job. And so when somebody gets injured, it's not like it's, oh, that's like supposed to happen kind of thing. It's like you're supposed to be able to make it through the
Mm.
whole movie without getting injured. But these stunt performers are the expendable part of the cast.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're the ones that can essentially get hurt, and then you just kind of toss them off to the side or whatnot, depending on what stunt it is. Like Robert Pattinson during the Twilight era. The
Mhm.
movie. So I knew the stunt performer for him, and I mean, there's no way he's not replaceable at all because he has to have the same body type as Robert Pattinson. He's got to have
Mhm.
relatively the same height, the same build. He's got the makeup and everything all done up. So like the stunt performers, they make pretty good money. You know what I mean? And they can have a really fun career, and I think that's where a lot of the focus is I'm enjoying myself. I'm really enjoying my craft. I'm training. I'm having fun with my friends. I'm on set with my friends, and we're just kind of hanging out and having fun, and it's a great time and a great experience. And the injuries are kind of like it kind of happens.
Now, do you guys interact with the crew, or is it like the stunts come out together at a certain time? I mean, do you have those moments where you're interacting with the actual actors and stuff?
Yeah, so I can't speak for different sets as far as than the ones that I've been a part of. The ones that I was a part of, they kind of had like some of the actors off to the side, and then the stunts kind of hung out with all the stunts. But you would
Hmm.
intermingle and stuff like that, especially during like the food trucks and different parts. A lot of times, like when you're on the set, you're not like in the backstage, but you're like going up and getting ready to film. Like you're interacting with a lot of people, but
Hmm.
it's more of a professional kind of thing. So you would network.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so kind of
Yeah,
in that.
that's hey, learning something new. Didn't know that, so that's great. Um, so in terms of staying fit and in shape, what are some tips that you would give to people? Because right now we are very sedentary. We're on virtual stages. Even when we're not on camera, we're probably somewhere on a couch watching a movie or something like that, to kind of relax. So, what tips would you give us about staying fit?
Yeah, I could definitely speak to that. As far as now, kind of working a lot more in the tech space, and I mean, I'm at my little battle station here. so much So there's a couple of different things that I would kind of recommend or suggest as far as keeping your body healthy and moving. Movement is medicine. So the more that you can kind of like get out and get into a routine of just standing up, walking around your house, having a specific spot where you're like, hey, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to go walk over there. I'm going to go stretch and stuff. Getting into yoga has been phenomenal for me, like getting back into my yoga roots and getting back into consistently doing yoga. I've got a pull-up bar right over here where I do a lot of my calisthenics type movements. And then I just try to move as much as possible as often as I can. And it actually helps me stimulate my mind in a way too, you know, kind of like Jennifer Lyle, like check your energy. As soon as my energy gets low, I kind of go up and get some movement going on. I'll do some stretching. I've got foam rollers. I used to teach corporate injury prevention. So I teach foam rolling, and that would be our way of minimizing the workers' comp costs for large corporations. And we were able to save companies millions and millions of dollars on like back injuries and leg injuries, knees and stuff, just by teaching them how to foam roll. So I'll spend a little bit of time each day foam rolling to make sure that my legs and my hips are in proper condition to actually be able to sit. I kind of treat sitting down as an exercise in of itself, and so you can't just necessarily just slouch into it and slump. Like you have to have the muscles primed and ready, and then stretch out and recover from that as well. You know, like otherwise it's like my back, you know, my hip or the hip impingement and stuff like that. I've got a little cushion underneath my desk where I'll slide it out, and then I'll be doing lunges and stuff, and I'm at the same height as my workstation, so I can actually be in a lunge, kind of stretching into my hip a little bit while I'm still working and stuff. And then the eating habits, like you mentioned, I started. I'm on a software team with GoDaddy right now, and so I work nights because we're meshing with the European market and stuff like that. And so I've been on nights for a while, and that one was bad because I would have too much of the like milk and sugar in my coffee, and so I would be spiking my insulin throughout the night. And then I would go into my normal habits of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then I would go back to my coffee. So I was never letting my body actually digest my food. So I was gaining weight like crazy because I never had that like come down moment, let your body digest the food. And so I had to go more to an intermittent fasting, which is 16-8 intermittent fast. So you have an 8-hour eating window. Like you can eat, everything's fair game as long as you're in proper portion sizes and proper caloric intake for that 8-hour eating window. But the 16 hours in between, no eating. Your goal is to not spike the insulin. So if you can drink coffee, you can drink water, but coffee has to be black, and water, of course, can't have really anything added to it. So you're trying to make sure that there's no insulin spike, so your body can actually go into more of like a digestion mode and help the body digest the foods and stuff. And I lost the 20 pounds that I'd gained just by doing that and a little bit of exercise and stuff. So I think movement.
That's good. Now, how much time did that take place?
That was about.
I'm all about weight loss. Okay.
Yeah, that was about 2.5 months for me.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I'm not, like I don't like have a crazy amount to lose either. So it's always like.
Okay, what are you saying? No, I'm just.
No, not to you. That's you. I'm saying in general, like a lot of like I still have weight loss clients. So when they're losing weight, it's like when you're first starting the journey and you have, let's say you're trying to lose 100 pounds total, that first 25 is pretty easy to come off, and then it starts getting a lot harder as you go down. Then you've got to make sure that you're balancing out the pH in your blood and everything to actually allow your body to digest that, because adipose tissue or fat is 3 different types of acids. So when you're breaking down fat and trying to get your body to process it, you're actually dumping acid into your body, and your body then has to process that and eliminate that, get your body back to a regular pH level. So the more you can do to alkalize it. And that's what happens when people are like, oh yeah, I was losing weight, I was doing good, and then I hit this plateau. Like I just can't lose that last 30 pounds is so hard. Like it's because their body's starting to become so acidic that they need to remove a lot of those toxins and everything.
Wow.
Detox, get the liver up. The liver's like what would you call it? The oil filter of the body. So that's, you need to make sure that that's kind of clean and everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, you know a lot of stuff. That's the thing I'm saying. We have these conversations where we talk for hours, but
hours.
So talk to us about the web slinger, what that's all about. A lot of people think it's a great term, and I think it's pretty genius based on branding. But so talk to us about that.
Yeah. So I was talking with a friend, and he's one of my kind of like marketing PR buddies. So we brainstorm all the time, and he was mentioning that, when I was kind of getting back into the tech space and rebranding, we were kind of into the physical fitness space for a long period of time and in the brick and mortar side. So now I'm like, okay, let's go online. Let's go back to my tech roots and everything. And we were talking, and he said, it's hard for some people to recognize that somebody is multifaceted. It's like we see them in one light, and they really don't come out of that light. You know what I mean? Case in point being like Joe Rogan. If you think of Joe Rogan, it's like some people think of Fear Factor, and like that's all they know of him, and he hasn't done that in years. You know what I mean? Or they think of UFC, and that's the only thing. But he's so multifaceted in so many different realms. It's hard for people to bring people out of the box, so to speak. So the web slinger persona, or the branding of web slinger, is my ability to kind of take in the physical realm with yoga and acrobatics and acro yoga and everything, and then bring in that tech space. So it's kind of like what I like to attribute it to, it's like Spider-Man after he was a protege of Iron Man. So it's Spider-Man, but he's got all of the same like tech influence and intelligence and smart hacking abilities of Iron Man. So that's kind of my persona, and that's kind of what I'm going for. So I'm starting a podcast. It's coming in August and everything, and it's going to be Talk Fest with the Web Slinger. So that way people can kind of get a little bit of both. I'm going to bring on some people from hopefully the Cirque du Soleil community, the stunt community, the physical fitness realms of that world, and speak about those businesses from an entrepreneurial perspective, from a worker class in that kind of industry. And then I'll go into like the tech space and building your own membership sites. And I have courses that I'm curating for that, and just really like building a platform. But I feel like as an entrepreneur, if you're not taking care of your health, you're also doing yourself a disservice. If you're not moving your body properly, doing some yoga to really like help minimize any shoulder injuries, it's the same thing as like, if you're going to care about your ergonomics on your keyboard, then you also need to be going a step further and caring about, your sleep habits, your mental health habits, your water intake, like what your dietary needs are, like preventing those diseases. I like to think of it as, if you're saving for a financial retirement, what are you doing to save for a physical retirement too? And I feel like if we could normalize a physical retirement versus just a financial retirement, it's like, great, you've made it to the end of your working days, and you want to retire, you have all the money to, but your body's beat up. You've torn your rotator cuff because you didn't take care of it. Like your hips are sore, you barely walk up stairs, you can't lift things. It's like, that's not much of a life after that. Like, those are supposed to be your golden years, not the golden wheelchair years.
So true. And you bring up a good point about being able to marry those together, because so many people feel like you have to be single faceted, and you can't show your personality, your family, or certain things that really kind of make up the wholeness of who you are. That was one of the things that I dealt with my brand, with America's Supermom. It's like, hey, I was striving for the American dream and being a mom, and I felt like I couldn't do them both. But now I've learned how to weave them together and marry those two to where I can use all of it as a part of who I am. So for somebody who's like a little nervous about that, talk to them about some of the benefits that you've noticed with being able to have those two come together rather than trying to compartmentalize them.
Yeah, I'll speak to the negatives that you'll run into a little bit more. One is, like you're talking about, a lot of people recommend a stay in this one lane, you know what I mean? Hyper niche down and whatnot. And I feel like that's good for certain types of businesses, and there's definitely realms of like, hey, I'm trying to run an e-commerce store in just this single realm. Great, you know what I mean? But if you're trying to kind of do a little bit more of like, I don't know if I would even call it solopreneur, because there's a little bit of a negative air to that, but maximizing your personal brand and identity, I think to do as much as you can to stay true to yourself is important, because a lot of people will come off as like, oh, like you've got just so much and you've got doing this, and they kind of try to create like a negative around it where it's like, oh, I couldn't do that, so maybe not, maybe you shouldn't do that, you know what I mean? And almost people projecting their own self-limiting beliefs on you, and you're like, well, hold on a second, like I've overcome my self-limiting beliefs, I've overcome being true and authentic to myself.
Right.
I don't need somebody else to project it onto me. You know what I mean? Like I already have my own thoughts of like, I'm behind on this project. I really haven't focused on this one in a little bit. And to have all of those different things, it's definitely difficult. It's definitely different than just focusing on like, let's just focus on one specific highlight. And I feel like when you limit yourself in that fashion, not just for multiple tasks, but multiple different identities, you're not allowing your personality to come through in an authentic way. And I think when I speak about branding, one of the things I speak about is humanizing your brand. And it comes down from like, let's bring this from a corporate kind of feel, really nice, clean branding, into a human feel that has emotions, that has a personality. It makes mistakes, it has failures. And when you humanize a brand in a certain way, there's definitely ways to do it wrong, but it allows people to connect at a stronger level with you emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And when you start to say like, okay, this is me, this is who I am, and you're strong in that sense of self, I think it starts to empower other people, and it starts to, your light shines across multiple different realms, and you can actually help positively impact other people to then live their true authentic selves, and not, everybody's trying to fit into a box. So if there is no box, then everybody's free to roam around as they can, you know what I mean? And I think it creates less of a front. People put on masks a lot. They put on that front. And I think to dial down into being true and authentic to yourself is, I think, extremely important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it really breaks down that wall of perfectionism, because of course, ideally, you would like to be the best tech person, but life is happening all around you. So you can't focus on just tech all the time. It's about relationship building, or, your kids may have an issue, things going on with your wife. And when you believe that you can compartmentalize, you kind of think that you can control things. And then that mindset of fixed and believing that you can do it all and just focus on that and everything else is just going to cooperate. That is a recipe for disaster. I mean, I've been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's so much to it where, like you have kind of taken your personal and your professional life, and you've kind of merged them together. And I've kind of done the same thing, like I just really love the idea and concept behind entrepreneurialism, not just for the fact of creating and making a business, but creating solutions and understanding that it's like an art form. Like entrepreneurialism is an art in of itself. And I really want to teach my kids that, you know, and get them to express themselves, even if they're an employee somewhere, even if they work a normal standard 9 to 5 job where, you know, there's a lot of people can admonish that kind of lifestyle and stuff. It's like, if you find something that you really enjoy, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think to always have that ability to say, like, I am me, I am able to express myself, and I'm able to put my influence out into the world, into the universe, so to speak, and have that outlet of creative freedom in that entrepreneurial space. I think it's really important for people to balance that out with, you know, not just always dedicating your craft to somebody else's goals and dreams, but having the ability to create a goal and a dream yourself and then work steadily towards it. You know what I mean? I'm sure you can attest to how many years it took to build your brand to a point where you're like, hey, like, I feel like I'm good here. Like, not good, like I don't want to move forward, but like I can look back and be proud of my journey, and I've accomplished a lot, and I have been able to accomplish and define that success. You know, to be able to work towards something for many years, I think that's where a lot of people lack that ability to persevere through things, to stay persistent on things, and to really, I don't know, not give up. That's the thing, you know, is
true.
Have that little outlet, you know.
Well, and I think also just the whole thing of being in alignment. Like, you know, you talked about people being in masks and all that. And I mean, we're talking figuratively, you know, even though literally now we have masks, but that was something that I wrote in a chapter of my book about, because I live behind masks. And, you know, you go back and you think about some of the things that you might have accomplished during that time. And some things you just don't really recognize. Did I do that? Was that really truly me? So it's like sometimes the rewards don't even mean the same because you can't fully embrace who you are. You don't know what part of you, received that. Whereas now it's like I can look back and I have so much fulfillment because I know it wasn't the makeup that I wore or the outfit I had on or, you know, who opened the door for me. I know that it was just me showing up as myself every time. And that just, to me, means the world now.
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes back to what you're saying about always trying to be perfect. You know, we live in this carefully manufactured persona world, especially with social media and everything. It's like we're supposed to put on this show of like, oh, everything's perfect, everything's hunky-dory and stuff. And you're allowed to go through struggles. You're allowed to, you know, have a difference of opinions on where you want to go, the projection of your own business and your branding and stuff. And I think when you come into business saying like, okay, like this is my pigeonholed strategy of branding, and I'm going to just lock myself into that category, and you become like this robot, so to speak. You're right. You don't even get the sense of accomplishment. Even if you're reaching and achieving goals, you don't get that sense of like, hey, like I'm actually doing this. You know what I mean? Like this is cool, you know, and to let yourself live authentically in those human emotions, I think is especially important. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like allow yourself to just be you know, and I know that pressure to be perfect all the time, to be perfectly manufactured, to show up with, you know, T's crossed and your I's dotted and everything's all perfect and stuff.
Exhausting.
But yeah, you know, a lot of times, like even if you're saying, you know, like coming from a tech person, right? Like I did this public speaking gig one time, and I was teaching about technology and building your platform and everything. And like, I was like, one of my subdomains just like totally crashed, and the DNS rerouted back to 0. And I was like, what just happened here? And it's, you know, and like I'm laughing because it's like, it's not a matter of if something's gonna go wrong. It's what do you do when it goes wrong, and how do you have, you know, like it's the ability to get it back on track fast enough.
Yes.
You know what I mean? To catch it and recognize like, oh shoot, this is slipping. Let me bring this back to where I want it to go. You know what I mean? And even to look at me and think like, oh, tech guy, you know, he's got his websites intact, he's got all this other stuff, and even from a branding marketing where it's like, oh, like this kind of should have like a better, like cleaner image and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, I'm working on it. Like I'm kind of going for it. And to speak to that, I had one experience that I think you would kind of get a kick out of in a like terrible way. So my wife and I are running our gym. We had a CrossFit gym and then we had a gymnastics. So the main one was the gymnastics gym, and that one was like the one we were growing the biggest. And one of these ladies, and she was like a mutual friend. She had her best intentions at play, but what she said was terrible. And she said, you know, and like I'm playing with my son who's like 1.5 at the time or something like that. And she looks at me and she's like, you know, your business would do so much better if you didn't have kids. And I said, okay. I always try to pause before I really react, you know, and I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what? You're right. If I did not have a pull in a personal kind of responsibility nature where I am required to go dedicate some time, some energy mentally and emotionally towards this area, I would have more mental clarity to put more into the gym, into my business, and into growing it bigger and stronger and better. You know what I mean? Going from 200% to 300%. Okay. I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, one, like non-returnable item, I'm not sure if you know that, but two, it's my baby. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's, you know, my brother just had a kid, and I don't think it's quite hit him yet. You know what I mean? As far as like what that does to you. And I know me before kids and me after kids are totally different. You know what I mean? Yeah. I had worked with kids for 10-something years at that point. You know what I mean? I'd been a coach. I'd been working with them as a sports trainer and everything. And I was like, you know, this is totally different. When you have kids, it's not even that I would want to do this without kids. Right. It's not that I would want to. It's like I want them to see me working towards something. I want them to take an interest in what I'm doing and to see how I'm accomplishing things, how I'm positively affecting and bolstering up other people and encouraging them. You know what I mean? I want them to catch that passion and come up with their own ideas, their own goals, and start working towards them. You know what I mean? And to work through that struggle, like I think it's important in all those realms. I think it's important that the kids see you being physically active and that working out and taking care of your health is a priority. And I think that personal growth, watching you continue to learn, to continue to apply yourself and work towards different areas. And I'm probably bad about it, but I mean, I let my kids come in on Zoom, you know what I mean? And they're really respectful most of the time. Sometimes they're a little bit crazy, but
we have fun. Yeah,
they have fun. They like monkey all over me and stuff like that, and I'm like, I'm cool with it. You know what I mean? As long as I'm not too distracting and too, you know. But I want them to see what I'm doing. I want them to understand what I'm trying to accomplish, and you know, I think the biggest aha moment my son had was when, you know, he had finally gotten his app published in the iOS store, and you know, he was able to download it on my mom's phone or his mom's phone, you know, my wife's phone. And it was cool to like, you know, be able to like, he's like, this is mine. This is so cool. It's like, and that had been about a year journey, you know what I mean? And when we get our physical copy of our coloring book, that's going to be another journey before we actually get that. Like we've been working on it for a while, you know what I mean? Like we're getting everything ready and situated and stuff. And so when he gets that, it's going to be that sense of accomplishment. And so then if I can also show him like, hey, this is something that I've been working hard towards. It's something I've been really pushing towards, and not just about crazy dedication to your craft, but specific dedication to your craft, where it's you're maximizing your time that you're dedicating to it. So you're not taking away from your family, but you're you're creating a good environment for your family, and you're having a nice balance between taking care of them and taking care of yourself too.
I love that. And, this is a great ending question because you have a lot of men, breadwinners, or whatever the case is, or maybe they're in, small businesses or entrepreneurs, but you guys are expecting another baby, so you already have two, you're expecting another one. And the pressure for, post pandemic and, nothing seems certain. And for people who are on that cusp of trying to reinvent themselves and wanting to fully embrace having their business, but then there's this nagging voice of, stability, insurance, and all these other things that may come up that have been a story of the past. What advice would you give them about moving forward with the things that they aspire to do?
Yeah, I think time management is really where it comes down to. If you there's definitely been times where it was like, I gotta go take a job. You know what I mean? It's like, we're just not going to be balanced here in a few months financially. So we need to like bolster up the income. And sometimes the businesses, it's like, entrepreneurialism is tough. It's like, when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you kind of get in between those zones. And sometimes you have to dedicate a couple of years to your craft before you're really like making that money and bringing in a healthy stream of income. Mm-hmm. And one, being able to diversify your income streams. You know what I mean? There's been plenty of times, like when I tore my ACL, I had 3 different types of income streams coming in. I had coaching, I had some gym type stuff that I was doing, and my classes that I was teaching, was like one of my first businesses. And then I was like, oh, great, I broke my knee. You know what I mean? Like, I just tore everything in my knee. I was like, I had a diversified stream of income, but now I can't physically do them, so that didn't work. And then so nowadays I have that different streams of income coming from different areas where, I like some of the smaller streams of income that are a little bit more hands off. I like some of the ones that are like, when I can really dedicate a lot of time to it, I can make more money, but that's a heavy time requirement. And then building things that are low time requirement and maximizing that income potential is important. And if you have to take a job and you're working a job or something like that, or even if you had to go to the grocery store just to make a little bit of extra cash to pay the bills, you got to do what you got to do, but don't fall into the rut of that physical exhaustion taking away from your dreams too. Because if you have, I was working at Costco, working on my business at one point, and I was pushing carts and doing some different things and stuff. And I was looking for some other jobs and stuff, and I was trying to build my businesses, and I just had my laptop. I would connect to my phone and I would start creating stuff. I would start networking, I'd start marketing, I'd start doing different things. And so to never lose sight of, I'm not working fully in my business, so I'm not doing anything. It's like, well, if you have 20 minutes to dedicate a day, then you can try to accomplish something. You know what I mean? Like, you really have to make sure that you're monitoring your sleep, you're monitoring your energy levels, and you're not getting emotionally and mentally drained from whatever you do have to do to make money, that it stunts your growth in the business sense. Forward movement is what you're trying to accomplish.
I love that, because when I first got into coaching, I had a business coach, and she was in the UK. She charged me $1,000 for her strategy sessions, and I didn't have it, but and you had to pay up front. So I got a part-time job as a waitress, and I worked that job. It was easy, quick money, got what I needed to get the coaching. I set a deadline for myself and gathered the money. And afterwards, it was like, oh, this steady cash is coming in. And it got to the point to where, just like you said, your dreams become more of an afterthought rather than the thing that wakes you up in the morning. And then my attitude, I'm complaining and, I'm like, why are these people doing these certain things? Their behavior was affecting my behavior. I just said, this is crazy. So I love that you mentioned that, because sometimes we get distracted with cash that may not be the best thing for us at that particular moment. Because when it comes to your business and your dreams, there's so many other things besides the money that's coming in.
Mhm.
It's about the relationships, about all these other parts that make up that complete dream. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, just don't get discouraged and never lose sight of that. I
Mhm,
mean, I've been poor before. You know what I mean? Like
mhm.
I think when I was working in stunts too, it was like there was a couple of weeks where like I'm working toward my dreams and I have like $10 and that's all I had. Like rent's paid, but I've got $10 for
I,
the next 2 weeks to eat. Like
hey,
that's it. And I'm
I
like, how many
know that.
apples can I buy off of this? How many days is that gonna last me? Jar of peanut butter, we're good. Like let's
I
go.
know that's right. I think that's why now I collect banks, because we would have jars of, coins that we would cash in for gas money. You can
Yeah.
only imagine having a large family, and, we're over here dreaming about having our own businesses. People are looking at us like, what is going on with them? You have too many kids. You need a regular job, that type of thing. So yeah, that might be why now that you said that, I collect coin banks. That is just my thing now.
Yeah, it's there was plenty of times like we were doing pretty good in the gym for a while, but there was a couple moments where I mean we had snack bars at two of our different locations,
Hmm.
and we would use the snack bar money to like pay our bills and like buy groceries for ourselves and stuff. And like people on the outside, they go into this massive gym and it's like all this equipment and everything's going on and they're like counting the kids and they're like, oh, they're making so much money and stuff. And it's like our gas turned off this morning, like because we couldn't pay it. You know what I mean? It's like we're struggling, and you make it work though.
You
We would
do.
constantly we'd be like, all right, how many like things can we buy from Sam's Club? Go set up in the snack bar and that's what we would do, and
So true. Yeah, you know what? I mean, there is something to, being a little bit of an actress, when it comes to being an entrepreneur, because people look at the outside thing and they don't even know the half of what's going on.
they don't
When
know.
you're showing up, they don't know, I mean, barely making it with certain gas to get there,
Yeah. And
wondering how you're going to get back.
Oh, and especially if you have employees too, like you're not allowed to react on whatever the heck is going on in your life. You give them a little bit of a window. You're like, all right, well, you kind of had a rough day. Like, let's not yell at our parents and not yell at our customers. But like as the owner, the entrepreneur, you're like, yeah, all right, I'm struggling, but like, I think it was a really good point. I was in a clubhouse room the other day,
Hmm.
and one of the ladies, I'm forgetting her name now, but she was bringing up the difference between telling your story and trauma dumping on people. And there's a
Yeah.
big difference between using your story to uplift, motivate, and empower and say, like, hey, look, like, not everything's been all hunky dory and great for
Hmm.
a while, you know what I mean? Like, and owning
Hmm.
that struggle
Right.
versus just be like, oh, like I'm doing terrible and this and that, and just dumping your trauma on people. It's like if you haven't digested your own struggle or you haven't like I don't know. There's so much that you can change. There's a whole line of conversations we can go on about that. You know what I mean?
So
And
true.
and different things. But yeah, it's kind of like you don't want a pity party. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you don't want people to be like oh poor you kind of thing. You
Right.
you want to own the struggle. You want to say like look like I've been poor. I am poor now, but this is what
Hmm.
I'm pushing towards. This is what I'm focusing on and to keep your head above the water. I think that's the important part is
Hmm.
it's hard when you don't want to like tell people you're drowning. You need the help if you need the help, but you
Right.
also like if you're not like fully under the water and you're just struggling to learn how to swim, then sometimes that's like different and that's like
Hmm.
are you looking for attention with that whole thing or are you looking to like own your story and then write it in your book later because that's what
So
I that's what
true.
I tell people like you know what like this is going to be part of my book right here. Like, this is it.
I love that. That is a great attitude. I love that. So this has been a great conversation. As you guys can see, we can talk for hours. And didn't even know each other before, this group that we were in. And, as you can see, connections happen when you just sit down for a conversation. So what is the best way for the audience to get a hold of you?
Yeah, probably LinkedIn. Just type in Matthew Hissong, or I think if you type in web slinger, it should pop up. Just that, or Matthew at webslinger.net. If you have any projects, I'm specifically not specifically, but primarily I've been working on like membership sites and kind of custom apps that integrate with databases and stuff like that now. So, but I've done troubleshooting, I've done, platform and tech consulting, design of platforms and different things like that. So if somebody's got a project that they're really looking to kind of get another brain on to see like, okay, how do I build this properly from the beginning so that I could maximize my growth and income stream potential? Sometimes it's a big amount of laying that brick foundation. So
that's
LinkedIn. Yeah. If somebody connects with me on LinkedIn, then we can engage in that conversation. I can help them out, just pick my brain and stuff like that. So that's what I tell people. Just pick my brain.
Awesome. Well, look, we'll probably have you come back. Membership sites is a big deal right about now. So that's a great stream of income.
I'm in the thick of it. I'm in like the code, plug-in conflict management. Like we're going through like a crazy amount of stuff. Like I've gotten extensive training in it, and I'm one of the biggest WooCommerce plugins, WooCommerce WordPress type membership plugin is with Skyverge, and I'm on the Skyverge team right now. So that's literally what I do for my my actual career job. And then like my freelance business type stuff is like, I end up kind of working on those as well and building platforms and the graphics and actual content for people too. So
awesome. We're going to have you back right around in the fall as people get back to school and getting back into the thick of it. So we'll have you come back.
Yeah. So, and I think I'm going to build like a course for that too. Like where, because I like the DIY or the done for you type things. Like here's the done for you service. Here's the DIY. Like if you want to go learn it, it's going to be a little bit less, money consumption, but more time. Or done for you is like more money, or done for you is more money.
Less money, more time. The other one is more money and less time. Yeah, I got you. He does work nights, y'all, so y'all got to give him a little grace. But what final thoughts would you like to share with everybody before we go?
One is just understand that the faster you make mistakes, the more you're going to learn. I tell people all the time, especially in like the brick and mortar stuff, is like, eventually I'm going to run out of stuff to do wrong, and all that's left is for me to just do it right.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it. So, okay. Well, we have just really enjoyed this time, Matthew. You are such a great guest, and we look forward to having you come back about memberships. You guys be thinking about that. If you have any questions, DM me or Matthew. Let's get it on so we can have him come back and talk about that, because I think that's another great way to create income for people. Very passive oriented, depending on what kind of membership you have, because some of them can be pretty involved.
But still less time trade with money. You know what I mean? Like less spending your time for money and more of like creating a content that's going to be able to serve thousands of people. Like you can't do that one-on-one, so being able to serve a larger audience, I think is super important for the future growth of your business.
Definitely. So again, we want to thank you again, Matthew. And for those of you watching, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Matthew through LinkedIn or leave us some questions in the comments and we'll be sure to answer them. So with that being said, we want to thank you guys. Have a wonderful Saturday afternoon. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.
That was so much